blow this up.
Look alive, Bomb Squad. We are back for another installment of Let's Blow This Up. I am your host, Jason Sircone, flying solo once again with you on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. Or maybe it's a different day, depending on when you're listening to this episode. Today, I want to talk to you about networking, more so from the podcasting perspective. Are you using podcasting as the powerful digital networking tool it can be? I ask this question because a lot of podcasters aren't leaning into this as much as they could. Now, depending on when you're consuming this conversation today, you may have already listened to my live stream with Julie Brown. She is the quintessential networking dynamo. Just wealth of knowledge coming from Julie, and that live stream was pure evidence of that. If you haven't checked that out yet, the audio replay will be available as of tomorrow. So depending on when you're listening to this show, it may already be in the catalog for you to consume. If you want to check that out, but you missed the live stream, the video replay is available on YouTube. Jump over to the Bombtrack Media channel and check that out. But I wanted to spend a little bit more time with this because I feel using podcasting for networking is one of the most overlooked strategies in growing your brand. And when I talk to businesses about utilizing podcasts as a pillar of their marketing and branding approach, this is one of the major reasons why. Because you can get so much from podcasting if you do it the right way. But what I often encounter in my own guesting excursions, and sometimes when I have people on my own show, I don't see a lot of that follow-up. I don't see a lot of that attempt to take things to the next level. So let's break this down. And this is why I feel we all need to be looking at this, because we're okay. As I sit and talk to you today, it's 2025. We are beyond COVID. Those days are over. We don't have to worry about going out in masks or social distancing and staying 6 feet apart. Live networking has come back into play. When we were in that crazy world of not knowing when we were going to be able to be in a room with other people, and we still needed that connection, but we weren't sure how to make it happen, we found ways to make it work. As Julie and I discussed, it made us get super creative. And I think that podcasting really took off because I don't think it was new, but it was more normalized to come together in this digital environment and create content together, even if we weren't in the same room. I know a lot of podcasting was done in person with studio equipment, whether it was a professional studio or people dragging everything they had, microphones and mixing boards and computers and cameras and all that good stuff, to a remote location to record with a person one-on-one. Believe me, I did it too. But I had also started to do this digital connection so I could expand my reach. And believe me, I felt when COVID hit, it sucked, obviously, but that was one of the things that helped podcasting, was it normalized this digital approach. But in all of that, we also found ways that we could stay connected. So Zoom took off, and we were able to have those virtual conferences, and we were able to stay connected, and we were able to have networking capabilities, even if we weren't in the same room with somebody. I hated it. I may do, because that's what we had at our disposal, right? If we wanted to have that connection, we wanted to make sure that we were still making strides to build our business. We had to connect in that capacity, but it wasn't the same. And you probably felt that too. But at the same time, I think that now that we've moved on, it's still a part of our world, and you still see virtual summits and virtual networking events, and all of that did become more normal, quote unquote. But I still don't think it has the impact of in person. The one element that I feel that came from all of that we brought into our world and we still utilize today is podcasting in the digital environment like this right now. It gives us such an ability to reach people that we can have on our show that we never would have even imagined, because they're on the other side of the world. Geography alone was keeping us apart. Never mind status. We just weren't in the same building or same room or same city or same state. So getting together was hard. But now we've got plenty of options to make that connection happen. In my opinion, if we're going to those extremes and we're making sure that we're building content for our podcast in a way that we're bringing on the greatest voices that can lend their credibility and expertise to the topic at hand, we should be taking it to further steps to build relationships with those people and ultimately get the most meat off the bone as possible. And that's why I firmly believe podcasting is the most powerful digital networking tool at our disposal, because you have an opportunity to make a connection with somebody. You have an opportunity after that connection is made to not only create incredible content for your audience to consume, but in the moment, in that creation period where you're sitting down one-on-one, or if you have multiple hosts or you're doing multiple guests, whatever the case may be, it's a very small, tight-knit environment. Let's say for conversation's sake, it's just one-on-one. Much like I come to you each and every Thursday. We're going one-on-one, and I love this environment, but I also do conversations with my friends on other episodes that you find here in season 3 of Let's Blow This Up, and I love that element as well. All of the people that you've seen here on Let's Blow This Up to this point, and will continue to see for the rest of season 3 and beyond, are all individuals that I've made connections with through podcasting, but I took it to the next level. I didn't just want to end it with having a person come on my show and be a guest. That was a major component of the entire creation process. But in my mind, I knew this person has expertise and we can rap for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, make great content. If we can do that, why can't we take things to the next level? Why aren't there potential opportunities in play for us to explore? Maybe that's another collaboration. Maybe that's a business partnership. Maybe it's a friendship. Maybe it's all of those things. Every voice you've heard on Let's Blow This Up throughout the season, I have that type of relationship with everybody you've heard in one way, shape, or form, or in a number of those different ways. But it all started because I didn't just end it at, hey, come on my podcast, let's talk for an hour, and then we'll say la vie. No, come on my podcast. We're going to make incredible content. We're going to have a kick-ass conversation, and then we're going to follow up on that. We're going to see where things go from there. If the content was great and there's chemistry between us on the microphone, what's to say that we can't sit down and plot world domination together? So here's how you make this happen. There are a number of systems that you can put in place, and I highly encourage you to do something to take the conversation to the next level. So let's start with this is one of the big advantages of doing this, because I know in talking to podcasters, one of the biggest complaints and gripes they have is when they produce assets and maybe they even just share the link to their latest episode featuring XYZ guest, and that guest does nothing to respond and does nothing to share, despite the fact that they may have said, oh yeah, we'll blast this out to our email community and our social media community, yada, yada, yada. I understand that that is a problem. And if you're a guest, you absolutely should be leaning into that content and utilizing it because it helps your personal brand grow. At the same time, it's on the podcaster to promote their show. So if guests do promote, the way I see it is it's a bonus, because you're going to be doing the promotion anyway. If they get behind it and they do their part, great. That's awesome. But it shouldn't be expected. But something you can do to at least push it forward and keep it more front of mind for that guest is to keep the conversation going after the recording session ends. And I've talked to many podcasters where they've had this complaint about guests not sharing their episode. And I ask them flat out, when's the last time you spoke to that guest? And oftentimes, more times than not, the answer is, well, we recorded a few months ago and haven't really spoken since. Yeah, a lot's happened in that time frame for you and for them, and you're just not top of mind anymore. They've probably done dozens of other guest appearances between when they sat down with you to today when their episode went live. And that's part of the bottleneck in podcast guessing, is it takes some time for episodes to go out once the conversation takes place. But if you're truly maximizing the medium and you're taking things to the next level, you're building a relationship that could lead to a number of different things. But at the same time, because you're keeping the conversation going, they're going to remain excited about that guest appearance they made. And therefore, the likelihood of them sharing that content when it goes live goes up because they didn't look at you as just a one transaction type of person. You're coming at them with value. You're coming at them with an idea for not just a podcast, but for a potential partnership, for a potential relationship. And I'm not saying that every single one of these relationships materializes into anything. You may just have that one recording and you may try to take things to the next level, but you get pushback or you get no response at all. That can happen too. But you never know until you try. One of the big things Julie and I talked about was going into networking events with a strategy. And when I go into a live networking event, my strategy is very simple. I want to talk to as many people as I can, but my goal is to walk out of there with one contact that I know when I follow up with them the next day, it's going to lead to something bigger. It's going to lead to lunch. It's going to lead to dinner. It's going to lead to a cup of coffee. It's going to lead to a cocktail. Whatever we set up as the next meeting, I know that we made a connection strong enough for me to make that next connection and take things to the next level. I've done my job if I make that happen. If I walk out with multiple contacts like that, that's even better. But I go in with a very simplistic approach of I just want to make an impression, have some conversations, have some fun, and walk away with at least one person I know I will follow up with the next day. And as you'll learn in my episode with Julie, if you haven't consumed it yet, follow up is where it's at. And that bleeds into what we're talking about with podcasting today. When you have somebody on as your guest, as I mentioned, sometimes the conversation stops after the recording button goes off or the recording stops blinking. And that's the wrong way to do it. And if you continue to let the silence overtake things, you're pretty much getting pushed down that relevancy chain to where a person's going to say, oh, okay, yeah, my episode with them went live. Super. And then that's it. Now you get your part out of it where you share and you get the conversation going, but you won't get that same excitement from the guest just because they're not as engaged in that process. They'll never be as excited as you, and you should expect that. It's not their show. They're going on a number of different shows because they've chosen to lean into the audiences of others to get their message out there, to showcase their expertise. It's a great strategy, but I feel the networking should come from both sides. If you are a guest and you're primarily using podcast guesting, you should be thinking about how am I going to get the most from every guest appearance I make? And to get the most, you need to think about networking and building relationships above just creating content. You could go on a show and you could promote and I don't want to say sell. You shouldn't be selling, but you go on a show and you tell stories and you're entertaining and you're engaging and you can make an impact on that audience. But there's a person on the other side of that microphone who could be the next big partnership in your business, or they may have something that you've been looking for, or vice versa. They can become a customer and you have what they're looking for. But if you don't ask the questions and try to take things to the next level, you'll never discover that. So what you need to do is think about relationship first, content second. And I know it kind of goes against the big axiom of what I say here on the show because content always comes first. But in the moment of making these connections, you should be thinking about, let's not say content first. Let's say content and relationships are equal because I don't want to put one above the other. They're both super important. But your relationships and how you try to forge them are going to make or break how much meat you really get off the bone when it comes to using podcasting for a networking tool. So every time you do a guest appearance, you should be thinking about the next step. If that host isn't going to reach out to you, and I'm telling you, most don't, you should be thinking about how you can reach back out to them. As a host, someone gave you their time to come on the show and be part of it and help you create content that is designed to engage your audience, get them excited about what you're doing so they go and tell others that they need to listen to your show as well. If you're not taking the time to thank them for that, that's a huge miss. But in thanking them, you should also be setting the table for what can come next. So you can do this yourself, or you can set up automated systems that have them in a funnel. And I know through Calendly, I've built this before to where it sends an automatic reply 24 hours after the recording to thank them for being a part of it and to set the table for, hey, this was a lot of fun. We made some great content together. Would you be open to a conversation without the pressure of building a podcast? We'll just sit down and talk and see if there's any more commonalities we can uncover. Not everybody replies to that. Not everybody says yes to that. But there's going to be the right ones that do. And that's how you can build your network, because the more opportunities you create for yourself to make those connections, you're going to open up new doors. That's just more doors opening, and you never know who's behind door number 3. So think about it on that level. It's not just about building the content. Again, huge part of this, because that content can serve many masters, as we've discussed. When you repurpose it, you're setting yourself up for a ton of success. But maximizing the relationship that you start through that recording process, that cannot be duplicated anywhere else, because in the moment of creating a podcast, you both have a common goal. You both want to create content that impacts the audience. You both have a message and a story that you want to tell. Why not try to exploit that for all it could possibly be worth? That's where the magic lies, my friend. Go into this next, when you have your next podcast session, whether you're hosting your own show or you're lined up to be a guest, start thinking about networking first. Of course, you want to tell your story. Of course, you want to make an impact. You've probably put yourself in a position to where you know what you're going to talk about. You know your story. You're honing and fine tuning, perhaps depending on where you're at on your journey and in the timeline. But go into it thinking, the person on the other end of the microphone, what else can I do with them after we get done with this recording session? And then reach out to them and ask. All you can do is ask and say, thank you for being a part of this show. If this is your show, again, if you're the host, thank you for being a part of my podcast. I love the content that we created. I'm sure my audience is going to feel that love when it goes live. But in the meantime, before your episode goes live, why don't we connect again and hang out? Talk about what could be. And in that conversation, you never know what can happen. Is podcasting the most powerful digital networking tool at our disposal? Absolutely it is. Because if you go back and you think about those digital networking environments that I said before that we had to do during COVID, that we're still doing now because it just became part of our everyday operating procedures, there's still value in it, but you're never going to have as strong of a connection as you do with a podcast, because of those common bonds of creating great content and making an impact on the audience. You're both there for the same reasons. There's plenty of ways to build chemistry, and then you can take that to the next level by telling the story in a different way and doing it together. You never know what that can lead to. You'll never be able to recreate that in a Zoom type of environment. But with a podcast, because you're spending intimate time together, creating, discussing, sharing ideas, there's so much more that can come from that if you're willing to have the conversation to make that happen. Use podcasting as more than just content creation. Use it for networking, and I guarantee you're going to start seeing better results in everything that you do. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Let's Blow This Up. I hope you had a great time, because I know I did. We'll be back with new content next week. In fact, before I even get to that, as I said, depending on when you're listening to this, the audio replay of my live stream with Julie Brown may be live. It goes live on Friday, so you can consume our full hour conversation about the power of networking, both in person and with your podcast. Lots of value in networking this week, so I hope you're here for the ride. It's a lot of good stuff coming your way. If you have any questions about this, you know how to reach me, Jason at bombtrackmedia.com. Happy to address anything that you have to say about this content. And until our paths cross again here on Let's Blow This Up, I am Jason Sircone. This has been Let's Blow This Up. And allow me to remind you one last time to be explosive.